Evolutionary Hardcore 2.0, episode number 45. So today we're going to talk about 2023 Para Pharma Reviews Discussed. We're going to kind of go over, why Para Pharma. We're going to talk about the brand Para Pharma, how it's been a hell of a year for Para Pharma, best year ever for them, growing like a weed. Lots of reviews for 2023 have come out. We're going to go over them. We're going to tell you, the what people are saying basically throughout the year. And Mobster and I, we've used Para Pharma products ourselves. We're going to talk a little bit about our experiences as well. But it's going to be a really, really good one. And you guys can follow along. You guys and gals out there follow along to these reviews and kind of hear out, why Para Pharma has been getting so popular so rapidly. So first, let's talk about, why Para Pharma. And one of the things with Para Pharma that I like personally is that the stuff that they're selling, okay, they have lots of different options when it comes to oral steroids, injectable steroids, your ancillaries that you're going to need on cycle, your ancillaries that you're going to need off cycle. They even have, things like dick pills, the Viagra, the Cialis that you may need either on off cycle, or even if you don't run steroids, you could order from them. So they have you covered no matter what you're trying to get. The other thing I like about Para Pharma is the product that you're buying. When you buy something from them, you know that not only that it's what you're buying, but also you know that the amount that you're injecting is what they're claiming. So if you're injecting 500 milligrams of testosterone, you know that you're getting 500 milligrams of testosterone. It's not going to be underdosed. It's not going to be fake. It's not going to be overdosed. You're going to get what you expect. So that's very important. Mobster and I, back in the day, when we first started using these very powerful hormones, we would order them or we would get them from someone at the gym, and we had no clue what we were taking. It was a gamble. We could order Anavar, and they could sell us D-Bol. That was very, very common, especially back when Mobster came of age back then, the late 80s, early 90s, especially early 90s, once Anavar became really hard to get. So what steroid dealers would do, they didn't want to lose their customers. They didn't want to lose money. So they would continuously sell Anavar, but they would sell it as D-Bol, or sell it as Winstrol, or sell it as T-Bol, or sell it as Proviron, because they didn't want to lose business, you see. And they were doing this. Sometimes they weren't doing it on purpose, because the person they would get it from, would be the one selling the tricking them. So by the time it got to them, they didn't know. They thought they were getting it from a reliable person, and that person thought they were getting it from a reliable person. And even though they were honest, the person they originally got it from was not honest. So you see, that's the problem. But now Para Pharma, they produce their products, they test their products, they make sure that their products are good, their batch is good, just like any FDA approved pharmaceutical company out there that has a drug. They make sure before that drug leaves the warehouse and goes to the pharmacy that it is legit. So when you buy from Para Pharma, it's like you're buying from a pharmacy. You know the stuff is good, and they have the certificates of analysis to back it. One more thing, Master, before you bring you in, very, very important. We've had people on the forums. These are veterans who've been around the game a long time. They've used a lot of steroids. They're older guys. They're in their 50s. They're in their 60s. They've been through the ups and downs of steroids. They know. They've used fake steroids. They've used underdose steroids. They've had the experience of going through that. They've wasted lots of money on fake gear. So what happened was they actually took different Para Pharma products anonymously. It wasn't like they went to Para Pharma and said, you know what, send me gear. I'll test the gear out. I'll let you know what I think. No, they went and bought it with their own money without Para Pharma knowing a thing. And they took the product and sent it out to be tested. And the results were excellent. And these are guys looking to find something wrong. These aren't guys that are like friendly with the sources. They want to find something wrong. They're like that inspector when you go to buy a house. The inspector comes out, you hire the inspector. They're trying to find something wrong because that's their job, to find something wrong. And if they don't find something wrong, it's like they didn't do their job properly. Or that's like that AC guy or the auto mechanic. The auto mechanic, when he likes to look at your car, he wants to find something wrong because he wants to scare you and he wants to make money off of you, to have to fix something. But in this situation, they couldn't find anything. They're like, look, it's 99% pure. It's what they say it is. We're good to go. I mean, and they couldn't find anything. So that's the benefit of using Para Pharma, is you know what you're taking, and it's so good. It's so nice, Mobster. I've spent so much money on fake gear over the years.
Yeah.
And it's so nice today to be able to literally just to go online with a click of the mouse and buy what you actually want to buy. I spent $1,200 on a Primo cycle. Halfway through that cycle, I was like, you know what? I got screwed. This isn't real Primo. And that's the worst feeling in the world. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as Steve said, I'm a child of the time that Steve talked about, and I've probably been online, the whole bodybuilding, weightlifting, whatever you want to call it, for, I'm trying to think now, Steve, 30 something years. It's 2024 as we record this podcast, and I'm thinking 1990. I mean, I started lifting or whatever in 1980, and I started to think about being online and seeing comments and posting about what we do from about 1990 onwards, right? So in that time, the bodybuilding thing was very much sort of off to the side discussions. Guys would PM and DM each other, but you didn't really discuss it openly on the forums. And then eventually we kind of got comfortable doing so. So, and I think I've mentioned the name of this forum before. It doesn't exist anymore, so I'm not promoting them. But it used to be the number one forum in the United Kingdom, muscletalk.co.uk. James Collier is doing incredibly well for himself in another business and was a state registered nutritionist. And yet that could have actually fucked his certification, his being state registered, allowing these kind of conversations. But it kind of got cool, and we started to talk about stuff. So I've seen, like Steve said, and I'm thinking specifically in Muscle Talk, I was on the cusp of this thing myself. I was asked to be part of it. I commented on it. I gave some suggestions to it, but I didn't actually chip in the money myself, probably because I wasn't using steroids then. But what happened was, like Steve said, is that we had a collective group of about 20 guys. And this is not the only forum this has happened on. It's just an example. 20 guys where they said, right, we're all going to stick the equivalent of $100 in, guys, because if we can afford steroids, we can afford $100 Steve. It's a beer out with the boys. It's a nice curry and a take home with the wife, whatever, right? It's only $100, but it's 20 of us, so that's $2,000, and that means that we can get simple lab tests done to see if Anavar's Anavar, D-Bol's D-Bol, and so on and so forth. So this, and again, the suppliers had to man the fuck up. They had to man the fuck up, Steve, because I know of companies that have had amazing product day one, and in 12 months later, it's 50 or 60% of the ingredient that it should be. The quality's gone to shit. They're just not trying. They're getting high on their fucking money that they're making from producing this product, or they're just so goddamn busy that they haven't got a clue how to run a business. And so the product quality's gone out the window. Supply is difficult. You get amazing product, but it's taking fucking forever to get to you, and so on. So here's what's happened. And I'm not just talking about steroids. In the marketplace in general, certain companies were able to get away with really poor customer service or incredibly bad delivery times. And companies like Amazon have made companies man the fuck up. Literally, the way that you can get your money back, or you can keep the product and we'll send you out a new product. Expectations of customer service has got better and better and better. It's a little bit annoying sometimes because people go over the top with their expectations. In reality, and this specifically applies to PEDs, and specifically because we're talking about Para Pharma is a great example of this. Companies now have to work and run a proper business and be fucking professional in providing products. They have to package products properly. They have to reimburse you if the package arrives broken or replace it. They appreciate the simple fact that they can have a new arsehole torn online if they one person complaining doesn't mean shit, Steve. We've seen badly fucking worded complaints, and you know it's fake, right? But when you start to see this stuff all the time, you start to realize, hang on, this is different people at different times talking about different products, and it's all bad. You can't have that in business anymore. And again, we've said this on other shows when we talked about Para Pharma. You would not. It would be impossible. I don't care what kind of business person you are. You'd have to have really deep pockets to keep putting out poor products and stay in business and do all these other stupid things if you were still doing it after 10 fucking years. It is impossible. So what you end up with is a company like Para Pharma that are as close to pharmaceuticals as it's possible to be, short of, being run by a massive pharmaceutical company, working out of a pharmaceutical laboratory, producing high quality products on a regular basis that are resold, not just directly, but resold through other really big name resellers that we and you were talking about in a pre-show. I'm not going to name them on this show, but and then also get this product to you quick across the world as often as not, having companies that resell for them in different countries and continents to do so, and actually treating the business like a proper fucking business, sitting down and having conversations and say, listen, we want to get into Europe, we want to get into Australia. How do we do that? How do we get the Australians to take our product? And so on and so forth, right? This is exactly the kind of conversations they're supposed to have. That's exactly what they're doing. And that makes them professional. And then again, you start to think professionally, then you have a proper business that's run for over a fucking decade. Then what do you get, right? When it comes to PEDs, let's say that you don't mind if it takes a little while to get to you. Let's say that you don't mind if the package could be better written out or more carefully put together or whatever else. Let's say that you're cool with that. You need the fucking product to work. You need the product. When alas, it's here. It's amazing. Thank fuck for that. I'm going to start my cycle right away. Steve's right. I've had literally product, and I've said this on other shows, that for days before anything was happening, and I realized that the pills that I was using, the D-Bol in that case, wasn't the real deal. And the moment I started taking the real product, I noticed gains within 96 hours. I started taking it on a Friday, and I was 4 pounds down, 4 pounds up on a Monday, whereas I'd been running the other product for 10 days and seen nothing. And I'm not the only one. But you and I can think of examples, Steve, and we talked about this on other shows. And you can find this stuff online, guys, I mean, you don't see it anymore, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there are photographs from that time of product with floaters in, poor bungs, badly labeled, no label, you have to guess what was inside, because he didn't want to put a label on in case it got started cussing, loads of stuff. And none of that happens anymore. I used a phrase in a show recently the other day, Steve, which I think kind of applies here. And I think Para Pharma is a great example of this. Guys, you've never had it so good. You have literally, for example, Steve, and I'm thinking of the Para Pharma website, which I've got up in front of me right now. You have a greater range of products than you've ever had, ever. You have a greater quality of products than you've ever had, ever. Certainly in my time. You have availability of products in timescales that would blow your mind on occasion. Because I'm thinking, Steve, where we used to wait a month for things, and that was cool. We didn't mind. And now we get it double quick, and so on. So listen, right? I mean, we've talked about Para Pharma before. I'm going to say one more thing, and then we're going to talk about why people have given positive reviews. We're going to read those reviews out and talk about in the review what it was that made it for a good thing for them and the reasons why we agree, and to discuss what makes for a great service from other people's points of view, from other customers, right? So we know that Para Pharma, I've used specifically myself, Para Pharma products. I've talked about the way that responded, and I'll talk about it at the end of the show as well, Steve, my Cut Stack 150 specifically. So I can say hand on heart, I've used Para Pharma products. I can talk about the service of the reseller that got that product to me super quick, well packaged, well presented. I can talk about the sort of things, and we've discussed this in other shows, when we go online, what we want from a company like Para Pharma, and the fact that we're getting it from Para Pharma. So look, like I said, guys, when we talk about these reviews, I won't want to say like it's myself as a customer, which I will get to at the end, but I want to take you we will go over the reviews and the reasons why they were positive, and discuss what makes a company like Para Pharma work in that particular way, so that you understand and get an idea of what to expect if you buy Para Pharma products from one of their, either directly or from one of their resellers, what you're going to expect, what you should expect, and a kind of like, advice that we'll give on the forums that make the expectation even better, because we're going to help you on the forums get a great cycle, super positive. If you want to lose weight, you'll lose weight. If you want to add muscle, you'll add muscle, and so on and so forth. So yeah, back to you, Steve, with the reviews. Yep.
Yeah, so let's start. We're gonna read some reviews off the forums first. There's a bunch of reviews on the Evo forum and the Anabolics forum, which is our sister site. So let me start with one that came out back in October 2023. And this is by Hispio, and he says that he was able to take advantage of the sale. It's some high quality gear, and he mentioned Quad Sweep, who is the head rep for Para Pharma on the forums. He's an excellent rep. So
he is indeed, yes.
Yep. They said they answered 100 questions that they sent them, and that's very important for any source or brand to have good quality reps on the forums that are always there to answer your questions and that are professional. That's very, very important, that are going to help you design the cycle, and they're not just trying to make a sale. It's like you take your car to an auto mechanic, you walk in there. Is the auto mechanic just trying to make a sale off of you, or is he honest and is he going to make sure that you have your car serviced to the best, the best quality service that you're going to get and service what you really need? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just jump in here, Steve. I mean, I've actually talked about this before, right? And this is super, super important. Listeners, this is going to be one of those mobsters' words of advice or phrases of advice, right? It would be so goddamn easy if I was a salesman, and I kind of am sometimes, Steve, and have been for my own company in the past. It was super easy for me to persuade customers to buy more than they'd rung up to buy when they rung me up to buy something over the telephone. Because if I had you on the telephone, I could sell you more shit. 100%. You just don't want to do that, boy. Stick another few quid's worth on. Come on. Oh, thank you very much. I always had like 15 or 20% in the sale easily. Right? So it's super, super easy, especially when you come to PEDs, to want to sell you a lot of products. And this is how it used to be. It almost wasn't worth companies doing $1,000. So when Steve talked about the $1,200 order, that was common. All right. So in sales now, you can do $500, $600 orders. In fact, we've done podcasts on it. There are still companies, especially those ones that contact you from fucking Messenger and Facebook and Instagram, Steve. Listen, I'd love to help you, fella, but the minimum order value is $2,000. Otherwise, it's not worth my while. And that way, that person makes $250 for it. They don't give a fuck if you make another order, Steve. They want $2,000 off you now. So here's what happens. And we've talked about this. Companies get to last, like Para Pharma, if they support you in your journey. Right? I would much rather, if I was a UGL, and if I was selling products like this, I want you as a customer for life. That's not one cycle, that's multiple cycles. I want you to go away having had a successful cycle. You put on 5 pounds of lean muscle tissue. And I want you to go to your gym buddies and say, not only did the product come double quick, not only was it well packed, not only was it properly labeled, and I can go and check I can check batch numbers, I can see that this is legit, etc., etc., etc. It's not some other company that's copied the product. This is direct from the company that I thought it was from. It's from this brand. It's from Para Pharma, and so on. And then I added 5 pounds of tissue. I feel fucking amazing. My bench has gone up 40 pounds. Because what happens, Steve, and this is it's like the natural order of business. It's actually one of those things where positive reviews, you don't always tell everybody that you should, but negative reviews you do. And I think the order is something like, if you have a positive result, you'll tell 3 people. If you have a negative result, you'll tell 10 people. So it's always bad for business if you fuck up. Companies like Para Pharma are growing at the rapid rate that Steve talked about before, because simply they are supporting you and they want you as a customer for life. So the service that they provide, even if it's just in emails or whatever else, and getting back to you and helping you sort out a cycle is super, super important. And they're not trying to oversell you. They don't want you to spend thousands of dollars when $1,000 would do. And that way that they get to keep you as a customer by being on point, helping you with your cycle, getting you great results, and then you want to go back to them because that's what it's like. Steve, if you ever find a place that sells food that you like and it's properly cooked, it's fresh as fuck, and the price is great, you're going to go back again. That applies to any product, whether it's service for your car or whatever else. This is why Para Pharma is growing and has a great reputation, precisely because they're supporting you with your cycle layer. And even if you do buy a little bit more, you can always use that on another cycle and so on and so forth. So I think that kind of thing is super, super important. Back to you.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm gonna read off some reviews here, and then Mobster is gonna comment as he just did. So let me finish this review first. Well, Mobster, he brings up a good point about that, and that's what being a rep on the forum is all about for sure. But this is his review. He says he's able to grab testosterone, equipoise, primo, and anavar from Para Pharma. Says the delivery was fast. He said he was surprised how quick they got to me, even international shipping. So that's good. That's a good sign too with a source that they're able to ship both domestically and internationally quickly, because international shipping can take a long time. But if it's a good source that knows what they're doing, they know how to package their products, they have, they know the way it works, getting things internationally, they know which countries they can get things in, no problem. So this is very, very important. So that was a good review that he posted on that one. Another one was they talked about making a order, and they said it was the most amazing ever ordering top of the line roids. Customer service walked me through ordering and paying with Bitcoin. They made it so smooth that I can't wait to order again. This is coming from Charles Davis back on December 15, 2023. Says, got my tracking numbers, and then I watched bring it to me in 5 days. I was so excited when I finally got my package. Our products are top shelf. I ordered Long Stack 300, and we talked about Long Stack 300 in previous episodes. It's a blend that Para Pharma has. It says within 2 weeks I look thinner, but already gained 15 pounds of lean muscles. That's really impressive. It says my energy levels are through the roof. Gave me new experiences in the bedroom and was off the chain. Overall experience was 5-star. Says the site is very legit with top of the line products. Have no worries when ordering from the site. And it says that they'll make another order again. So that was a really good review too. Go ahead, Mobster.
Yeah, I mean, let me touch on a couple of things here, Steve. Right, number one is the customer service aspect, and a bunch of companies that we approve have really, really good customer service. This is super, super important. I love the fact that Para Pharma is getting back to people, that they appreciate the speed that the replies come. I mean, sometimes we've seen this. Customers can be idiots, man. They really can. Oh, I contacted them. Listen, motherfucker, it's a bank holiday. It's like December the 31st. Everywhere is closed, and you're bitching because you spent $200 and no one's replied. And yet, what happens, right? Our approved sources are amazing, and Para Pharma's right up there, Steve, for that reason, because they're going online and checking out the customers' queries on New Year's Day or bank holiday or July 4th or whatever else, right? Half the world is having a holiday and chilling the fuck out, and someone's got their freak on, and customer service is coming back to these people within 24 hours and helping them out. Something else which occurs to me, and I made a note while you were talking. Listen, when it comes to PEDs, it can always feel like a little bit edgy, especially if it's your first time ordering. I've never ordered steroids before. I'm a bit worried about the company's going to try and scam me, blah, 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 right? I get it. For the first time that you ever order, I'm sure Steve and I were the same, even though I'd spoken to the person and I knew who the fuck they was that was getting this material from, I'd never ordered these products before. It all seems a little bit sort of, shady, right? But that's how it used to be. In reality now, regardless of whatever you argue to us in terms of the laws or whatever else, the quality of service you'll get is tip top. Okay, that's whether it's the customer service that I've already mentioned, or literally, and I'm talking about the person saying, the issues of using Bitcoin. I have had to do it. I've seen it, and it could be a bit nerve wracking, especially if you don't understand crypto. and how that works. It feels real complicated. It's great customer service again when the company says, listen, don't panic. We'll walk you through it. We'll tell you exactly what it's like the first time you have to do it. It'll seem complicated the first time, but the second, the third, the fourth time, it will be, as we say here, Steve, a piece of piss. And you'll go, how did I think this was bad? It's super easy. And they got back to me right away, and the product arrived days later. So the whole nerve-wracking, never ordered Anavar before in my life, and it could all be very dodgy. And I feel like, I'm leaving myself wide open to be scammed or whatever else. I understand it. I get it, right? Me and Steve have been there way back in the day. And in fact, way back in the day was a much bigger chance of you being scammed and ripped off and having your money disappear off into the ether. Doesn't happen anymore. And it certainly doesn't happen with approved sources like Para Pharma. And I love the fact that this customer specifically mentioned that, because it's quite simple that, a company gone out of their way to help you to make the service and the transaction smooth. And then when you got the product tip top, again, you've had great results. So that customer service, that aspect, looking after you, walking you through the process, especially if you're a new user, is amazing. I love that, Steve.
So this is a really good review. This was posted by Pat7X. This was back on the Christmas Eve of 2023. This is Para Pharma Test E250. Very effective and legit. I only do 250 to 300 milligrams a week. And my test levels when he got his blood work done was 1,700 nanograms per deciliter. This is what I talked about earlier when it comes to people who order Para Pharma. And in this case, he's doing a dosage. Now, if you go to your pharmacy, Mobster, and you ran between 250 and 300 milligrams a week, and you went to your doctor and got tested blood work, you would get the same number, around 1,700 nanograms per deciliter. It'd be in the high thousands. Now, if you go to another source, another brand, and you buy their testosterone, I've seen this a million times. They're underdosed. They come out at 400 or 500 nanograms per deciliter. It means their products are underdosed. They're at least 50, 60, 70, 80% underdosed. So Para Pharma, the quality of the gear is so important. And he posts his blood work in an attachment for all to see. And this is a person who has no bias. They're a honest member, and they posted their blood work on the forum right there in black and white for everybody to see. He also mentions he loves all their products, he loves their stuff, and he says also very fast on US domestic shipping. So this is what Mobster and I talked about at the beginning. You order gear, you want the gear to be good. You don't want to, like, imagine if he had got blood work done. He's 10 weeks into a cycle, and he got blood work done, and he's running that much testosterone, and his numbers were low on his testosterone. He's like, shit, I just wasted 10 weeks of my cycle. I wasted this money. I was injecting, I don't know what I was injecting, because it sure as hell wasn't testosterone. It was something else. I could be injecting anything for all I know. And that pisses me off to no extent. And the source has to put out, they have to test their products. They have to test their batch before they send that out. So that's on the brand. So in this case, Para Pharma, they tested their products. They saw it was good. They saw it was dosed properly. And then they sold it to the products. They sold it to their customers. So that's why I like this review. Go ahead.
If I was buying a car, listen up, listeners, because especially I'm talking to you newbies on this particular one, right? If I buy a car and the car has a claimed top speed of 200 miles an hour, the circumstances going to allow me to drive at 200 miles an hour are going to be rare. But let's say that all the customers that buy this car find at least one time that there's a time and a place where they can put their foot down and test the top speed. So every single one of those customers must, according to the law, there's no point claiming advertising standards in this country. You've probably got the same in America. They would sue the motherfucking asses off that car company if the car could not do 200 miles an hour. The car review magazines, and I buy them, even though I don't drive, ironically, they take them to a track, they take them to a runway, and they test that top speed. And they say, I got to 199 and a half, maybe the wind was going in a direction. We're going to say that this car can do 200. That's fabulous. So the problem sometimes with steroids, right, is that there might be an expectation that every single person that ever does a steroid stack, especially I'm saying again in newbies, you're going to gain 20 pounds. But listen, the individual response how hard you train, how good your nutrition is, your genetics, means that the results will differ. So what happens, old school, and I'm going to say new school as well, Steve, is that the one thing that we can test, which guarantees a product's provability of how good it is the test that Steve's referring to. This is your test level before. We talk about before test cycle, during cycle, and after cycle. So what was your natural test level before off PEDs, not using any steroids? What was it like when you was using steroids, and what was it like after you finished the cycle? And that number should be within a certain particular range based on the amount of steroids, specifically the form of testosterone and how much of it is, and so on and so forth, right? So how I respond to a low dose and how someone who might be my size needs more than me to have just as much of a result afterwards differs. But the number that Steve refers to should be more or less the same. And there are only a few tiny little things in there that can affect those markers. So we know within 5 or 10% that the number should be at this amount if I'm taking this amount. There's an upper limit, and sometimes, Steve, people get fucked up on crazy numbers, and you don't really need to have it, much over 2,000 and so on and so forth. But the argument here is great, because the customer's gone away, tested themselves, and came back and said, look, these are kind of where I was in range. And then when I used Para Pharma product, this was where it was fucking amazing. I was at this level, so I know, regardless of my results, regardless of how hard I train, how well I eat, the shit that's going on in my life, the lack of shit in my life, and so on and so forth, I know that the money that I spent on the product produced this level of testosterone in my blood, and that's compared to where it was before. As an example, Steve, let's say that the normal is, and it's going to be a different number, but let's say 600, and they know that if they take 500 milligrams of test, it's going to be up in the 2,000, then they know damn well that the product that they took was legit. They know they can literally ask a company to analyze their blood at a lab, and the lab test results come back and show that the product is legit. That to them, that's a gold guarantee. That is a gold guarantee. You cannot guarantee the results. You cannot guarantee the outcome. That's always going to differ. If we could guarantee it, that would be fucking amazing. It absolutely. If you take 500 milligrams, you're going to put on 10 pounds. If you take 1,000 milligrams, you're going to put on 20 pounds. That would be fucking amazing if we could. That we can't. But what we can do is we can have these tests, and we can say, if you take 500 milligrams of Para Pharma test, your numbers are going to be up around this level. Going to allow for a little bit of an individual discrepancy, a little bit this way, a little bit that way. But it won't be at that level if the product isn't legit. And that is a fabulous thing to hear. And this is the kind of stuff that we like to see from any of the approved sources, but specifically here today, listeners, for the Para Pharma product. Back to you, Steve.
All right, so let's head to the next one that we're going to talk about. So this one says it's from Caputo NL, and this was posted back on May 13, 2023. And it says, easiest transaction for gears ever. Been ordering for over a year after stumbling upon them. Every transaction was simple and quick. Highly recommend. He talks about Para Pharma. He talks about another brand that he was using that gives him knots and pain. It says Para Pharma does not. He used Boldo 500, which is the Equipoise 500 milligram per milliliter. That's really a good one, because with that one, you could take the EQ and just do 1 cc once a week, and you'd be getting 500 milligrams of Equipoise. That is cool. And he's saying that it's a smooth injection. So I really like that. As someone who loves Equipoise, for me, that is great to hear, because I love Equipoise.
Let me jump in again here, Steve. This is actually, we've covered this on other shows, and it's actually a hot topic from time to time on the forums. And this is super, super important, right? So poor quality product, and basically just lazy, even if the product itself contains what it says on the label. If it says it's 300 milligrams of testosterone and it's got 300 milligrams of testosterone, that's great, right? No. It needs to be in a carrier, whether it's an oil or an alcohol, Steve, of a type, typically grapeseed oil would be a great example, which is as going to cause as few issues to as many customers as possible. Now, some companies are lazy ass bitches, and they're not putting it in fucking peanut oil, but they're using too high of an alcohol content, or they're using an oil that might cause an issue in, say, 5 or 10% of their customers. That's bad business, really. You're saving a buck, and that's all you're fucking not even a buck, Steve, cents, right? When it comes to putting a product together, the oil part should be the cheapest part of what you're doing. And it's just lazy not to buy the proper product, the proper oil, the proper alcohol at the right percentage right at the beginning. Listen as an example, right? When they're lazy on the hygiene side of things, they will up the alcohol content to the point where it kills the bacteria. Great. So that's a plus. But then the customer injects the product and it stings like a bitch. It still does what it's supposed to do. They still added muscle. They still got strong, but it caused discomfort. Imagine if we brought coffee from a supermarket, Steve, and every single time it gave us like a red eye. Coffee was amazing. It tasted like the best coffee you've ever had, and it was a sensible price. But every single time you're blinking because it felt like your eyes were itchy or something, that would be fucked up, right? You was buzzing, and the coffee, just the best roast tasting coffee you've ever had in your life, but you're blinking after each cup. That would be fucked up. And yet this is what some companies do. So Para Pharma is one of them tip top companies again, specifically because you want the customer's experience, literally the experience of injection, to be as painful or painless as possible, pain-free as possible, as comfortable as possible. If the product is not, issues with the oil, no issues with the alcohol. It doesn't sting like a motherfucker, aka post-injection pain, and so on and so forth. And again, if the company was arseholes, fuck the 5 or 10%. That means you have the 90%, 95%, they could be good to go. Those are the customers you want. No, you want 100% of your customers. You want 100% of your customers. And again, this is especially true again of new users, Steve. You want that first time experience to go smooth. And then you want every single experience after that to go smooth. Think on. It doesn't matter if a person sometimes gains muscle or gets stronger or wherever else. If they go to their bud and they says, "How was that first injection you did the other day?" And they go, "Hurt, but I'm getting stronger." Hurt? Yeah, it'll never hurt me, man. Shouldn't hurt you. Shouldn't hurt you. I mean, there's always going to be individual response. This should be like a 1 in 1,000, 1 in 500. It shouldn't be 5-10% of people are having problems. So again, Para Pharma is using proper carriers, oil or alcohol, which do the job exactly as they're supposed to do, and make each injection that you have as smooth and as pain-free as possible. And again, that's allowing for people. I mean, I can be a clumsy ass motherfucker when I'm jabbing Steve. I'm more likely to be cack-handed and inflexible as an old motherfucker and move the pin around, and that caused me discomfort than I am as anything else. That's down to me being a rigid old motherfucker who should stretch more. And the way my sites that I'm injecting in, it's got nothing to do with the product. The product is fine. So that's exactly the sort of stuff. And again, we're talking about medication here. So it should be as useful as it needs to be for as many people as possible. Sounds like a silly thing to have to talk about, but again, when it comes to injectable steroids, it's precisely what you need to be talking about, and especially for someone who's new to the game that's never done this before. We've had first experiences, and we know from talking to people of the issues. And here's something else as well. I'll touch on this lastly. I haven't seen one of these now for a long time, and it used to be way too common, especially when I first started talking about steroids online and specifically reading about it, to see photographs of people with infections, abscesses, and they've had to talk about, as we say here, to go to the A&E or ER, the emergency room, as you say in the States, and they've had to have antibiotics, or even they've had to have the abscess cut out. That used to be quite the thing back in the day. You haven't seen, Steve, one or two of those for a long time. So anyway, back to you, Steve, because we've got some more to get through.
Yep. And let me finish this one. So he's running the EQ 500, really cool. Test E, Anadrol, Dianabol, and it was interesting is he ordered both the oral and injectable from Para Pharma. He says he got random samples lab tested. He said they've always tested for correct steroids and always tested higher than labeled. And he says, my test E250 tests usually 258 to 260. So that's an example of someone sending it out to be tested. So that's really good to hear. Says in a year using Para Pharma products, he went from 174 pounds to 200 pounds, and he dropped to 10% BMI. So the results were great. And he says that everything is top notch, speed, communication, errors are corrected within 48 hours. He said he had wrong shipment once. They had a new package out the next day. So that's really good to hear from a source, is if they do make a mistake, because mistakes do happen, human error in any business. I don't care if you're ordering from Amazon. I don't care if you're ordering from eBay. I don't care if you're ordering from any fucking company. Sometimes errors happen, but they're on top of it. They make sure that the customer is always on point. It says delivery is always on time, within a week early, never once late. Packages are always protected well. You could drop them 3 stories and probably not break the glass inside. So that was a really, really good review that Capito NL put up. So I really like that review. So let's move on to the next one, Mobster. Let's see. He talks about that he's been a victim of fake steroids many times in his life, but Para Pharma stuff is excellent. Says he did 30 milligrams of the Anavar. He did 400 milligrams of the Primo, 8 weeks. He says he got leaner, put on size at the same time. Very impressed with this product. I think this is the best dose gear you'll find. This is from Vuruese, and he posted this back in July. This is another good review that he talked about. So
Yeah, let me talk about
go
the
ahead.
one from before very quickly. So I've worked for my sins for a few months at Amazon at the end of the belt where they package their products and we would put them into cages to be distributed all over the country. And some of the stuff where you had lazy ass bitches, men and women, on the belt using the wrong box or the oversized packaging because they were too goddamn lazy to get the right package and so on and so forth. So if I was running a business like a UGL, it's bad business for me personally, even if I'm replacing the product, to send that poorly packaged product to you, the customer, that I have to replace because that percentage is a number that's hitting my bottom line. Right? So I want a company like Para Pharma that sends out product that's properly packaged, like that person said about dropping it 3 stories. That means if they do it right the first time, I haven't got to do it again. And it gets to me in well wrapped. And then there's actually photographs in some of the reviews, and we've seen these on our forum, Steve, where I've done it, where I've literally had a picture of the package with my address obviously blurred or whatever, and then I've opened it with the next picture, and then I've unwrapped it all. And I'm honestly, Steve, sometimes it's a bitch because there's so much fucking packaging in there. It's like, I'll be here for half an hour. Just give me a few minutes, guys, while I take this stuff. You want that. You don't want to send out $500 or $1,000 or $1,200 worth of product. Get it through the customers, get it through the post office, and then have it broken and in pieces, damaged or whatever, and have to replace it. And you do that because you're a good company. If you do it right the first time, you don't have to do it again. That's good business. And it also impresses on the customer that you give a shit. So yeah, that's super, super important. On back to you again.
Next one, he's talking about Para Pharma's fantastic. This is from JUE Owl. This was posted back in June. Just want to let everyone know I'm doing 150 milligrams a week testosterone E, Para Pharma. So far, so good. Got blood work 4 weeks into cycle. My numbers look fantastic. Says he's at 1250 nanograms per deciliter. So he's doing a TRT dose, and he's doing 150 milligrams, and it's above, the max where the normal levels should test. So he says I'm going to have to drop my dosage down closer to 100 milligrams to get me back under 1,000. So he says this is potent and well dose gear. And he says, I think I remember the podcast where the guys mentioned their gear was fully dosed. Well, the blood work proves it too. I will try their EQ and Primo next. So that's another one. So a lot of people, what they're doing, Mobster, is they're using Para Pharma products for their TRT rather than going to the doctor, going to the anti-aging clinic and paying 3, 4, 5 times more. Go ahead. Yeah.
Absolutely, Steve. I mean, we actually kind of recommend this. I'm a big fan of people saying TRT when they don't mean TRT. And I say, listen, it's not TRT if you're doing this. TRT is when you legitimately go to see a doctor and you find out that your needs are so, your own natural testosterone so low that it would be a great thing in terms of your health and how you feel about yourself, and obviously going to the gym and how you look, etc., if you was on TRT. And then we talk about the right kind of dosages and so on and so forth, right? So I nearly always recommend you go see a doctor or an endocrinologist, a specialist in hormones, and you get yourself tested. And maybe even if you have to do a couple of months, maybe a year, under that particular means and method, so that you get, your levels are steady, that your health is good, because this doctor should be testing your health markers and so on and so forth. Now, after a while, you work out the numbers, and I'm thinking specifically of America, but if I was doing it in the United Kingdom, it'd be much the same, Steve. It's expensive. It's way, way more expensive than it should be for what it is. And the numbers, I don't even want to think about the profit that they're making or whatever else. So, guys, you could pay hundreds of dollars a month, the equivalent of something that could cost you, if you bought it directly yourself, $35, $40, $50. I mean, $35 in a sales team for a month's supply, versus the medical industry, and specifically the insurance companies that cover you for your medical costs, assuming that you was able to get that done for TRT, because it might not necessarily be seen by your insurance company as something that you need. So you're then having to pay privately. The insurance company's not covering it. It could cost you hundreds of dollars per month. Now, you and I both know, Steve, that we can go out and buy a bottle of tensionate, $35, $50, $60. That's a lot less than the hundreds of dollars if you're doing it privately. And it's a lot less than the amount that the company or the clinic or the doctor would charge your insurance company. And that would affect your, premiums and the amount that you pay every month and so on and so forth. So what do we see? We see a lot of people, realizing that they could save $200 a month, Steve, $200 a month using a company like Para Pharma, and then go and once a year and pay privately, and still getting their numbers checked, still seeing how their health markers are, and still, hang on, this is exactly the same as the service I was getting before. The markers are the same, my health numbers are the same, and so on and so forth. So we actually kind of recommend that in a way. We're not saying don't go see the doctor, they don't know what they're talking about. That's not true. What we are saying is you could be out hundreds of dollars per month, thousands of dollars over the year, or your insurance costs could be crazy. And there's a way for you to save money, and that money could be put to other things, man. If you want to go Disney with the kids, now you've got the money to do that. And you're still looking good in the mirror. You're still killing it down the gym. Your quality of life still as good as when you were getting it done with the doctor, and so on and so forth. And we, on the odd occasion, Steve, just to finish, sometimes you'll get a helpful doctor who gives a fuck about the fact that you're saving hundreds of dollars, but they want to make sure that you're good. And so they will be the person, you're still paying them, you're still getting your health numbers checked, and you're still coming back as good to go. That's fabulous. I love that particular one, Steve. Back to you.
So Topps Baseball 88 did a review back in July. Now, he was very new to steroids, okay? And his first time using steroids was through Para Pharma. Actually interviewed him in a podcast. You guys can go back and listen to that podcast. He's since changed his username to Noah Wicks for marketing purposes. But he posted a review. This is his first time using steroids. He had amazing results. He ordered a 12-week cycle. He says the communication was A+, ordering process was a breeze, shipping lightning fast, overall look and quality of Para Pharma is A+. He got 2 bottles of testosterone cypionate, 4 bottles of primobolan, 1 package of Arimidex. Says he can't say enough good things about Para Pharma. He would recommend anyone and everyone for all the cycle, and they truly took care of all aspects. He put up a log of this gear, and the log was fantastic. And it was really he had amazing results on Primo from Para Pharma. So I think
let me comment on this, Steve. Listen, right? If and I mentioned it when I talked about the positive reviews, negative reviews impact that customers can have. He's a great example of the positive. So he comes onto the forum as a normal member, and he's a helpful kind of guy anyway. and he posts a little bit of piece, and then he goes away and he buys product from one of the approved sources, a reseller of Para Pharma product, and he gets Para Pharma product. And he comes back and he puts some pictures up, and this is all okay. This is all kind of normal. This is what we encourage on the forums, right? So far, so normal, Steve. This is what we like. It makes him a good forum member. But here's where he's become golden. And that's why I said, as you were talking, he's good people. Because, and especially good people for Para Pharma, because not only has he become a member that was doing a little bit of a service to other members, this is a helpful kind of guy, he's become something more. And that makes him a great fucking review in and of himself, just for the results that he's had. Just not just, he talked about, this is how it arrived. It looked great. I've got it. I've tested it. It's come out on tip top, and my results have been amazing. And then he's posted that. If you were a company like Para Pharma producing their products, and you have a customer like Noah Wicks, as he is now, tops from before, that is exactly the kind of customer you want. And you're trying to do that if you're Para Pharma, and I believe that they are, with every single goddamn customer you get, because each of those customers is advertising your product for you. They're going out there and spreading the word. They are influencing other people to do what you did, which is use Para Pharma products. And if they could post up photographs of the before and after, this is what I was before the cycle, this is what I'm after the cycle. They are walking, talking advertisements for a positive result, response, service, whatever you want to call it. They are literally promoting the product for you. You haven't got to come on and bang the drum and advertise hard. You haven't got to come on and sponsor everything on the forum or whatever else. You literally need one customer like Noah Wicks to go, do you know what? This was great. This was, I'm going to give an example, Steve, with a log, and I've got a log, as you know. Some of the logs, like mine, have thousands of people that have read it. Thousands. I guarantee you that the review that you just referred to has had hundreds of hits, hundreds, just for Noah. And it will get thousands in a not too distant future. This is what we like about Para Pharma again. Customers like Noah they are golden, Steve. They become a rep. They are like a walking, talking advertisement for your product, for your service, for what you're doing in the industry. And this is why you end up with a great reputation. And that's Noah on his own, without the Para Pharma review, is good people. But with this, that's just fucking amazing for Para Pharma, because he's out there saying, this is what I had no expectations, and look what happened. And that means that people, and listen, we don't understand sometimes when we're posting about these things online. If we put a silly little thing or a great thing, we might not always be aware of the impact that it can have. But if you're a good business, like Para Pharma, you're aware that if we do things right from day one, we're going to end up with customers like Noah that are out there promoting our product for us just by saying how great it was. I love this one, Steve. This is awesome.
So we got time for one more, but there's so many reviews on Para Pharma out there. You can come on the forums and our sister forums and check them out. This one was Para Pharma Test, Trend, and Master on. So it says first time using Para Pharma. This is from Bazaria. Came out in June. It says, what a great brand to use. I'm on Trend alone, and I'm doing 50 milligrams per day of Trend Ace, stacking Test Prope 50 milligrams every other day too. Then on top of that, I'm doing Master on Prope 100 milligrams every day. To say this cycle has been amazing is an understatement. Absolute beast results. Built up 8 pounds while also shedding body fat. I'm down to 8%, and I look amazing in the mirror. I'm not even trying to compete, but the way things are going, I might have to if I run more of this gear. So this is a really good one. So that's a really fun one. Any of you want to do like a recomp, test, trend, and master on from Para Pharma would be a really, really good one, Mobster. So touch on that, Mobster. We have a few, yeah, touch on that. Your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I said to Steve in the pre-show, and I think I might have mentioned it at the beginning of this podcast, was talking about personal experience. So listening to that review reminded me. I've talked about on another show, and I did a sponsored log on the forum with one of the resellers of Para Pharma products, and I did a 4-week cut. Okay, and it was the first time I'd ever used any product that contained Trend. So I'd never done Trend solo or as part of a cycle that I put together myself. And a particular product that they produce, and I'm going to name it here, is a product called Cut 150. It's 50 milligrams of Trend, 50 milligrams of test and 50 milligrams of something else. I can't fucking remember. And I'd have to look it up, which is a bit embarrassing as we do this show, but what the hell, right? So what happened was I started, I think that cut at 327 pounds, which is kind of where I was sitting all the time at that particular point. And they said, let's see if I can drop 8 to 10 pounds in the next 4 weeks, which would be a great result, right? So I upped my cardio from 6,000 to 9,000 steps a day. That's not a lot for some listeners, but it's where I am. I tidied up my diet significantly. I wasn't even hitting sometimes my daily protein amounts and whatever else. So here's what happens, okay? And it kind of echoes what that review just said. I went down probably to 320 within, I'm going to say about 8 or 9 days, 10 days. I can't remember. It's in my log and you can go and check it out to see exactly what happened. By the end of the 4 weeks, I'd actually got back, weirdly, bearing in mind everything was on point, and I was actually questioning how my body was responding, and the people were coming in with comments, and I was back up to 327 and a half pounds, give or take. Right, so on paper, I was the same goddamn weight at the end of 4 weeks as at the beginning. But this is how it was, man. First, I got fucking stronger. I went with less calories. I'm doing more cardio. So all the things that should be happening are supposed to be happening. And sometimes at the beginning, first 8, 9 days, as I said, they was. But I got stronger and I recompositioned like a motherfucker. I'm only doing, I think it was circa 700 something milligrams total, so 3 injections a week. Okay, not even that, was less than 450. So it was a bit more than that. I think it was, I was doing 1.5 million, right? So it was about 600-700 milligrams total a week, 725, I think. I went back up to the body weight that I started with, but my belt size, my weightlifting belt, the belt that I put on when I'm doing the crazy weights, went down and stayed down. And as I've said on other shows, it's still fucking down. I immediately followed this cycle with a bulk and went up to the all-time highest weight I've ever been, with my stomach still down, Steve, and it stayed down. In other words, I've gone down a belt size. I've got leaner in 4 weeks, got more muscular because if I've lost the belly fat, if my belt's gone down and yet I've gone back to the body weight, that means I've added muscle tissue. My weights are going up in the gym. I've then gone to a bulk and got to the all-time heaviest I've ever had in my life, 336, and my waist stayed down. That to me is as successful a cycle for cutting as I could possibly imagine outside of me doing a photo shoot or competing on stage. If I was that way inclined, which I am not because I train for strength, but if I was that way inclined, another 4 weeks, goddamn, Steve, if I did a real proper bodybuilding diet, if I had up my cardio to 12,000 steps a day, you would have seen a freak. If I was set up physically, I would have been, the results would have been amazing. As they was, I posted photographs. So my personal response to a Para Pharma product that aided my cut was fabulous. And I can echo the sentiments of that particular review in saying that the results were great. That the recomposition, I wasn't looking for recomposition. I wasn't looking to get stronger. I wasn't expecting results above and beyond a certain particular place. And the simple fact of the matter was, I got 1 or 2 of the numbers that I wanted to get, and then I got 1 or 2 positives, again, over and above what I was expecting. So for me, it was completely successful. I don't think, Steve, I'm ever going to get back to that point, and probably because I don't want to, of having a 6-pack and psoriasis and stuff like that, because I'd much rather be a strong motherfucker. But when you're able to do that and you add other stuff on top, then that's just fantastic, Steve. I love that particular one. Listen up, listeners. This is the whole point of this podcast, is to prove to you, to show to you that there are some great companies out there like Para Pharma, producing solid products and giving people amazing results with great customer service that gets you in a well packaged and in a proper thing. And then over and above any potential results they might have, that their numbers when they're tested are fabulous, their labs come back fabulous, and so on and so forth. Well, that's the reason why we love and approve Para Pharma, and we think that you should give them a try and see just how fabulous your results might be too. Please note, we are not doctors and opinions are ours. It is our view based on our experience and views on the topic. A podcast for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.